Hello again. We're about to start our File Manager version 8 overview in What's New webinar. Thank you for joining to our today's event. Just quick info, during the webinar we are going to be recording it and sending it out to everyone who registered for this event. Also, if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please ask them in the questions box and we'll be happy to address them in the very end of this event. So over the course of today's webinar, we are going to cover the following topics. So we are going to give a quick introduction to Five9 software for those of you who are new to our products. We'll give a quick overview of Five9 Manager, what's new in version 8 for existing customers. We'll perform a quick migration from VMware to Hyper-V. We'll cover the scenario for that, and we'll go through a summary and questions and answers session. As of our speakers for today, these are Alex Karamanov and Ivan Vlasov. Myself, Alex, I manage finance software solutions engineering team, and I've been in the field, security field, for more than 10 years. And I currently lead major finance software management and security projects worldwide. Ivan is product marketing professional, and he is fully dedicated to the IT field for more than 6 years, and he is currently responsible for developing and delivering main product positioning worldwide for Five9 software. He possesses deep product technology knowledge combined with a solid experience in virtualization. So as of Five9 software, we were founded in 2009, just at the moment when Hyper-V was introduced to enterprise customers. We are headquartered in Chicago with staff in regions, in 15 regions worldwide, including 10 Microsoft Most Valuable Professionals. We currently have more than 75,000 Hyper-V users globally, representing companies and data centers of all sizes, and using 3 of our products and product lines. So these are Five9 Cloud Security, a unified security and compliance solution specifically designed for Hyper-V, Five9 Manager that we are going to be covering today for easy, centralized, and affordable management and monitoring for Hyper-V, and Five9 V2VC Converter for fast and easy migration from VMware to Hyper-V platform. So let's begin with Five9 Manager version 8 overview. So if you're a current customer, existing customer using Five9 Manager, hopefully you'll find some useful functionality that you haven't used before. If you're an existing VMware user, I strongly believe that you'll learn new techniques, new technologies available for Hyper-V, and you'll be able to actually safely move from VMware to Hyper-V or have it as a backup plan in your data center. So Five9 Manager provides easy, centralized, and affordable management and monitoring for Hyper-V. We truly focus on keeping our solution very easy with very small learning curve. And the reason for that, we don't really want our customers to struggle with learning new technology, new product. We just want that to be intuitive and available for you to manage your entire Hyper-V infrastructure right away. It is still centralized, so it allows you to manage all of your clusters built on Hyper-V and all of your hosts, including different versions of Microsoft Hyper-V starting from 2008 R to SP1. And of course, we offer the solution at a fraction of the cost of VMware vCenter if you exist in VMware user, and surely a way less than System Center Virtual Machine Manager. So Five9 Manager allows you to manage the entire virtualization infrastructure. So you can actually manage failover cluster, Hyper-V hosts, virtual machines, virtual networks, and virtual disks, all of the virtual resources that you currently have within your infrastructure. It is designed for small and medium businesses who cannot afford System Center or for some reason are not ready to invest into learning curve in using System Center for a powerful Hyper-V management. So it looks and feels like VMware with Center because this product has been on the market for a really long time, and we know that management techniques and interfaces built in there are very popular, and we are actually adopting the same approach of providing powerful functionality and keeping that still very easy. SQL support included into Finance Manager allows to keep historical data and a monitoring database for future review, which makes and fulfills enterprise customers' requirements. When you launch a product, we provide you with the summary information, the summary overview that allows you to quickly grasp the state of your existing environment. The reason it's so important to understand the very first step when you start your Hyper-V virtualization management is because you can't really spend your valuable time on going through all of your virtual machines and identifying what virtual machine is working, what may be having issues, and so on. So summary view just summarizes the overview of your entire infrastructure within one single tab and gives you a very easy to understand pie chart on each of the levels. So it includes summary information for your data center level, for your clusters levels, for your host level, and also detailed information about your virtual machine on a virtual machine level. So it also includes the latest alarms and about the events that were happening within your system. So in case you see that any of your sectors on a pie chart diagram looks red instead of a green, you can quickly go to a host or a virtual machine that is having that issue and check out the latest alarms and fix them. So summary view is the great way to start your day of managing your Hyper-V virtual infrastructure. And if you were previously using VMware, that really gives you a great overview and great confidence about your new Hyper-V system. As we believe that enterprise customers, and actually every single customer who uses more than 3 hosts actually is going to use a failover scenario. So virtual machines that are running in these businesses are usually taking care about main business processes. So the high available setup is a must in these scenarios. And Hyper-V provides failover clustering role out of the box, so you can actually leverage that within Finance Manager to manage your failover cluster and reviewing the health of that, and of course perform live migrations between Hyper-V nodes, and also make your virtual machines highly available, so switch them back and forth from clustered to non-clustered state. A very important technology, so if you haven't configured failover, Hyper-V failover cluster yet, I strongly advise you to go this route because this is a technology that's included with Hyper-V. Hyper-V doesn't close any functionality with APIs, so compared to VMware, which gives you several layers and several levels of VMware licenses, everything that's available, every single functionality piece that's available in Hyper-V is available even with free Microsoft Hyper-V server version. So no logs, everything's available out of the box, and you can truly leverage high availability failover cluster role to ensure best performance of your entire virtual system. As a virtual machines management, we do support multiple connections methods and, of course, every single guest OS that can be potentially used within Hyper-V infrastructure. You can connect to a virtual machine by 3 different means, which include Microsoft Hyper-V VM connection, FreeRDP connection, and Microsoft RDP connection. So this actually is one extra connection method more than you usually have, even if you're using, for example, System Center. The reason we've included FreeRDP extra option as a console connection, so the one that doesn't require a network to be established, is the case when you have to perform some very important task. for example, on your domain controller. And suddenly, the console is not responsive, so Hyper-V VM console is not responsive, and you're not able to access your virtual machine for some reason. So usually you have to perform these operations pretty quickly, and we just give you extra confidence in your connections method by offering FreeRDP connection as a solution for potential Hyper-V VM connection flaws. So if you want to be absolutely confident that connection is always available for you, Finance Manager gives you this extra option to use. When you run your infrastructure, of course, you'll have to set it up and configure the way you can use your resources in the most efficient manner. So you should give all of your virtual machines the resources that they need, but resources monitoring is as important, because whenever you run your virtual machines, you have to ensure that none of them is actually eating up your entire host's performance, or it doesn't at least eat more than 50% of your entire system, unless it is a very important VM. So for that, we've included virtual resources monitoring that actually works for all the levels, including host and virtual machines themselves. This way, you can quickly review all the graphs for your CPU, network, disk, and memory performance, and set up thresholds to get notified in case any of these values are crossed by a CPU graph, for example. We keep historical data in the database, and with version 8, if you're a current Finance Manager user, we're actually expanding the amount of data you can store by integrating with SQL Server. When you set a threshold, of course, you want to be notified in case that's met. So for that specific reason, we've implemented email alerts and notifications. So when you configure your optimizer and monitor thresholds for warning and errors, you see on the notifications option criteria, you can go and select these ones to be sent to your email address. So whenever a performance counter goes beyond the limit that you defined, you get an instant email telling you about it. So you can go and fix this performance hog, or move a virtual machine to another cluster node, for example. Also, these notifications tell you if someone is trying to make changes with the system without you being aware of them. So if you look closer, it also includes notifications about someone restarting a virtual machine, changing a virtual machine configuration, or, for example, exporting a virtual machine. So if you have multiple users using your system, so multiple administrators, or you're a service provider that does service on a customer side, and when the customer gives you a call and says, okay, my system is not working anymore, you can be absolutely confident about his latest actions. So you can just go and review notifications to tell, okay, you actually changed your virtual machine configuration, which is not suitable for this workload, so you can be notified before your customer even calls you. So that's very important. If you're sharing Hyper-V administration between multiple admins within your infrastructure, that's all equally important. So if you have a junior admin that makes changes, you want to be notified if that actually happened. So this notification section is going to allow you to do that. Once you're done with monitoring and alerts for your system on the performance, of course, you want to actually make this process more efficient. So for this specific reason, we've included dynamic optimization or load balancing of your virtual machines. This one distributes your virtual machines across hosts to ensure that a single host doesn't become overloaded, so you have all of your virtual machines set up on an optimized manner on the hosts that are free on resources, so or at least they have the most resources available. So this is dynamic optimization functionality that's in Microsoft World is available in System Center Virtual Machine Manager. If you're a current VMware user, that is called dynamic resource scheduling. And This is available only with the most expensive version license of VMware. That's worth around 6K at the moment. And we are giving you this functionality right away with Final Manager installation. You're able to optimize workloads within your cluster, between your Hyper-V hosts that use shared storage, and even a scenario when they don't have a shared storage, you can optimize standalone Hyper-V hosts, which is a rare case, but still this is available. For that specific scenario, we use shared NAT live migration between Hyper-V hosts, and usually it makes most sense to use it on initial system setup when you're not sure how many virtual machines you'll be running on this particular host. You can be creating, for example, 50 on one host, 0 on third, fourth, and fifth, and load balancer will automatically balance your virtual machines load between this host using shared NAT live migration. When you start creating new virtual machines, something that is very well known in VMware world is data store. In SCVMM, you also have resources library, which is actually a shared location for every single host to access to and create virtual machines out of it. So this is what we created for Final Manager as well. So you can create master copies of your virtualized resources in the library, so you can put there your virtual machines templates, virtual hard disks, and ESOR files for future reuse. This library is accessible by all of your Hyper-V hosts. Therefore, you can quickly roll out new virtual machine out of this resources library very quickly by just pointing to a correct template. This greatly saves you time, and you don't really have to worry about recreating your virtual machine from scratch. You can go and use templates directly from Final Manager interface. Sys prep functionality is also included. You don't have to perform any steps to do that. It's built in inside Final Manager, and whenever you create a template, this virtual machine is going to be automatically sys prepped before it's going to be put into a centralized location for virtual machines templates. When we start talking about APIs, one of the probably most popular functions available in Hyper-V out of the box is Hyper-V replication. Hyper-V Replica is a disaster recovery way, right, to keep your workloads safe. Of course, clustering is recommended, but if you don't have a shared storage, Hyper-V Replica is the way to go to cover your disaster recovery scenario. Final Manager fully supports Hyper-V replication, allows you to manage that and set all the parameters that are necessary for that. Something extra that we include with Hyper-V Replica support is a way to monitor virtual machine replication state live and notify you in case virtual machine replication fails. So this is actually a very, very important scenario when you have to make sure that you don't fall into the false protected mindset and state. So when you set up replication, you want to be confident, right, that your workload is safe when you have to perform failover. So if for some reason replication fails throughout a week, month, that means that your copy, a replica copy of a virtual machine, doesn't have the latest data. And if it is important virtual machine, sometimes you want to replicate every 30 seconds. Sometimes if it's less, that can be 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. But still, this is amount of data that you are ready to lose for that particular virtual machine. If replication fails and you're not aware about it, this time can actually go to several hours, days, or even weeks if you keep replication running without monitoring its health state. So Final Manager allows you to get notified in case virtual machine replication fails. So this one checkbox actually saves you tremendous amount of nerves and gives you peace of mind, because you can be confident that if you have enabled replication, your virtual machines are going to be ready for failover at any moment, and if replication fails for any reason, you'll be notified and immediately fix that. This is Hyper-V Replica support within Final Manager. As of users login and changes that happen within the infrastructure, something that is very well familiar for VMware users, current VMware users, is the way to track this using the log at the bottom of the screen. File Manager possesses the same interface that allows you to view all the operations and their status directly within File Manager window. That's actually a very convenient way to track all these changes and also to track your background tasks that are time-consuming. For example, exporting a virtual machine takes quite a while. If you create 15 clones of a virtual machine, that still involves a virtual hard disk copy process. Therefore, it's going to be a pretty long one. So instead of steering that operation, you can safely send it into background and review its status and stage in the tasks log. File Manager also provides you with multiple system analysis functionalities that include best practices analyzer, integrated login, and system reports. Best Practices Analyzer is a Microsoft MBPA tool built inside the solution, so you don't have to go and switch to a separate solution to analyze if your server actually is compliant to Microsoft recommendation for Hyper-V setup. So you can go and run a scan on your host for every single role that's present there. As we're talking about Hyper-V host, obviously that's going to be a Hyper-V role, and review all these parameters, all these configurations, and if they're compliant to Microsoft's recommendations. As of integrated login, this is something that allows you to quickly review all the Hyper-V logs that help you investigate any potential issue that may be happening within the system. So this includes Hyper-V VMMS service, so Hyper-V VID, Hyper-V Worker, Hyper-V integration. So all of these event viewer logs are available for you out of the box and allow you to quickly troubleshoot any potential flaw, any scenario. And System Report gives you information, kind of a snapshot information about your Hyper-V host, including all the configurations of your virtual machines, of your hosts, of virtual machines uptime, and integration services availability, assigned virtual disks, and so on. This is indeed a very convenient way to get this information. If you're working with a customer and get it to a customer, if you want to share that with your team, this is definitely a very efficient way of doing that instead of going through every single virtual machine and collecting that data individually. File Manager can be expanded with Antivirus that was specifically built and designed for Microsoft Hyper-V. So this is an ageless antivirus, and if you're a current File Manager user, I strongly encourage you to leverage the upgrade availability for you within the product. So if you go to Antivirus tab within the solution, you get an Upgrade Now button that takes you to upgrade page that allows you to get your license upgraded to include antivirus functionality. The reason it's so efficient, it is an agentless antivirus that was built and designed specifically for Microsoft Hyper-V. It includes optional active protection and possesses very fast incremental antivirus scans. These scans are up to 70 times faster thanks to change block tracking technology that's built into the antivirus. This allows us to quickly track all the changes that are happening to a virtual machine on a block level and scan only the latest changes whenever scan time arises. So when you deploy a new virtual machine, you can protect it right away by assigning a new antivirus scan for that. And initial full system scan is going to take a pretty common time, and that's probably going to be something like 30-40 minutes. But as you can see on this screenshot, every subsequent scan is going to be incremental. So scan happening in 10 seconds is not something unusual. It can happen even in 50 seconds. But a common scanning time is around 2 to 5 minutes. There are two antivirus engines that you can choose from. These are Kaspersky Lab Antivirus Engine and ThreatTrack Antivirus Engine. So both of these engines are included with the solution, and at a very small price extra, you're going to be able to manage and protect your infrastructure with antivirus. If you're a current File Manager user, please keep in mind that architecture of File Manager with antivirus is a little bit different due to antivirus services that are going to be present on Hyper-V host. So you're going to be rolling out solution in two steps instead of just one. So standalone version of File Manager connects directly to each Hyper-V host and performs management operations this way. When we start talking about File Manager with antivirus, we actually connect to a management service, and management service performs synchronization between Hyper-V hosts that have a host management service, antivirus service installed on each one of them. So once again, this is a very straightforward installation still. You'll be just connecting your management service to a SQL database that it can be SQL Express very easily. So if you're currently using File Manager or evaluating File Manager, please have a look at an antivirus version. This is something that's going to give you this management, a very powerful management, along with a Hyper-V optimized agentless antivirus. We received a question before this webinar that was actually asking about the differences between free version and full editions of our product. And usually, this question comes up when your management team is questioning you whether they should be giving you money, right, to buy the solution. We really want our customers, our users, so Hyper-V administrators, virtualization administrators, to be very efficient, very effective on their daily duties. So we want to save your time, and we understand that management team doesn't really get it all the time. So when you want to give them information about differences between free edition and full version of File Manager, you can point them directly to Final.com Manager page with Compare tab, or you can mention the following information. So File Manager Free Edition is limited to one Hyper-V host maximum with 2 CPUs. It is covering 6 virtual machines, and the following functionality that it belongs to full version only is not available in a free version. So virtual machine replication and migration is available only in a full version. Resources library, monitoring, dynamic optimization, system status report, and best practices analyzer, as well as other failover cluster functionality, and trend and functionality. So all of them are available only in a full edition, full version of File Manager. So if your management team really wants you to be effective, the best way to operate is, of course, by using full version of the product. With that, I would like to go to File Manager version 8, what's new, to show you some exciting new functionalities that we've added into File Manager version 8. And if you're not using File Manager at this moment, hopefully you'll be as excited as we are. If you're a current File Manager user, I strongly encourage you to upgrade to this latest release. So the very first great functionality that we've added to File Manager is related to a broader Hyper-V clustering support. So with version 8, you can create Hyper-V clusters now by going through a very straightforward 4 steps wizard that allows you to add Hyper-V hosts and create cluster out of them. Of course, you have to have failover cluster role enabled on these hosts, but once you have it there, you're able to create a cluster. Validating cluster configuration is also included once you have created a cluster. Of course, before taking it into production, you have to make sure that all the parameters are correct. So for that, failover cluster validation tests are run, and this is something they can do right away with File Manager without the need to go and launch any extra consoles. So you can perform cluster configuration, Hyper-V configuration, inventory, network, storage, system configuration, so all of these tests on your newly created cluster. And once they all pass, you can be absolutely safe that this is indeed a supported Hyper-V cluster. We also expanded our monitoring functionality that is actually adding new very useful features from release to release. The latest enhancement that we've added for our monitoring is monitoring trends. This functionality allows you to predict your performance overload before it actually happens. So when you set up thresholds for your warning and critical events, the trend is going to analyze if your performance is growing and is going to optimize that and will notify you that your current performance, CPU usage, for example, is going to hit your threshold pretty soon. So this way you can actually predict your performance overuse and take actions before it happens. So monitoring trends allow you to predict this happening even before it actually happens. With version 8, we've also added full-featured SQL Server Support. From now on, Finance Manager can keep data in a Microsoft SQL database. It supports SQL Server Express 2012 and up, so if you have Microsoft SQL Server, Standard Edition or Enterprise Edition or whatever, you can use that as well, but SQL Server Express is sufficient. The reason why you would use it is to keep more historical data. By default, Finance Manager uses SQLite database that limits the logs to 7 days period. And if you want to go deeper in your history, so analyze what was previously happening with your environment, this is where you want to go and fetch that data from a Microsoft SQL database. So this is included with Finance Manager version 8 setup. So when you're going to be upgrading, if you're currently using version 7 or version 5 or 6, that's going to be very straightforward process, by the way, so you just be installing Finance Manager new version on top of that. But at the SQL configuration stage, if you want to retain data for a longer period, please make sure to point it to a SQL Server instance. We also know that sometimes configurations that people create are not ideal. Sometimes that may be hardware that is throwing out an alarm, an event, error event every 5 minutes and every 30 seconds. So, hopefully you're looking at a solution to solve that, but we know that this can be distracting. So if you receive one alarm after another and you know that you can't do anything with it at this point of time, you don't really care about that specifically today, so you're going to be solving that next week, and you know that's all okay, you can now configure alarm notifications very precisely. So you can go to Optimize and Monitor Event Settings and choose what events you don't want to be notified anymore. This is more kind of a convenience improvement, but surely we know that if you're having this kind of issues, you don't really want to be looking at them every single day. So you better fix that, but in another week, once you're aware about it, once you've notified you about it, you can take your own decision if you want to retain it or if you want to remove this alarm. And for antivirus version, we've added 3 major enhancements that allow you to improve your overall system protection and performance. So one of them is workload orchestration. So this allows you to limit the number of simultaneous antivirus scans happening. The antivirus scans within Finance Manager are very efficient. They're leveraging changelog tracking, and therefore they take you just a few minutes to complete. But still, we know that if your host is busy by loading your virtual machines, data, and all of them are very performance intensive, we want you to have a way to customize that. So with workload orchestration, you can set up a max number of concurrent scan jobs, which is very similar to concurrent live migrations. With version 8, we've also added a way to eliminate Hyper-V integrity limitations that forced Find and Manage with Antivirus to reboot virtual machine when the agentless scan found a virus. So now, nowadays, you can push an integration service that we call lightweight agent that is going to receive data from a full system agentless scan and automatically remove a virus out of a virtual machine. Once again, that was a Hyper-V integrity limitation, so File Manager had to turn off virtual machine to clean up viruses previously if you were using agentless scans only. Of course, it didn't apply to active protection, which was removing viruses in real time, but right now you can leverage the light and fast antivirus scheduled scans on their virtual machines while removing the viruses out of them. So if you don't want to have active protection right inside a virtual machine, you can actually schedule multiple full system scans per day and keep this agent running there just for one specific reason, to remove viruses that are found. And the latest enhancement that are related to antivirus update process is a centralized update procedure for Kaspersky Edition. So previously, each Hyper-V host had to go to the internet through a secure proxy to fetch the antivirus signatures updates. Nowadays, management service is going to handle the task, so instead of having Hyper-V hosts connected to the internet, you can have that management service connected to the internet only, and this is the one that's going to distribute the antivirus signatures updates between your Hyper-V hosts, and hosts are going to pass it over to virtual machines in case that's going to be necessary. With that, I would like to give my word to Ivan to demonstrate to you new File Manager version 8 enhancements live.
Thank you, Alex. You are now able to see the File Manager console, and now let's take a closer look at all the features in version 8 mentioned by Alex. So File Manager version 8 allows you to test, deploy, and configure a failover cluster from File Manager without launching additional software, and in this way eliminating any kind of extra complexity. You can easily add a new cluster by following these simple steps. File Manager can validate that your hardware and software configuration is compatible with failover clustering and will be supported by Microsoft. So as the next step, we can validate cluster by choosing the required parameters specifically here, or just by selecting them all. So you need to define what you'd like to test and what you'd like to check, and then run test, and you are done. So be sure to follow all these few steps and save your valuable time on some other important tasks. The next new capability of File Manager version 8 is monitor future and historical trends at the VM and host level. You can now generate resource utilization trends based on historical data, allowing you to identify unusual activity even before it reaches a custom alerting threshold. So in order to prevent a host from being overloaded, you can now get instant email notifications if your system stability becomes compromised. You can see where your resource usage is increasing or decreasing in a convenient graphical format directly through the File Manager interface. So here, for example, you can select the specific time frame to see your data, hit load button, and here you go. You can see the resource utilization, the percentage increase and decrease, and take the necessary remediate action based on this data. File Manager version 8 gives you the capability to pre-configure and customize which notifications are the most important to you. It aggregates all events for Hyper-V and failover clustering into the console and recognize your critical ones to immediately alert you about their occurrence. So here you can silence noisy or recurring alerts, and you can also disable specific notifications. So you just need to find the right one for you, click Add, and you're done. The next two things I'd like to cover refers to the antivirus options of the Finance Manager. So if you are using a standard manager, then you can upgrade your version to the version with antivirus here. But if you are using or evaluating the Finance Manager with antivirus, here is what you will be able to see on this specific screen. Now you can gain even more precise control over the performance of your system by designing the maximum amount and number of simultaneous AV scans. So Finance Manager right now controls how many scans will be performed on your virtual hard disks, and in this way prevents your host from CPU or storage bottlenecks. So for example, here by default, the number of scan jobs that can be done simultaneously is 8. So you can either decrease or increase those amount, and you are good to go. Another new option introduced in version 8 is a centralized antivirus update management right here. So right now you have to update viruses definitions only on the Hyper-V host, as our example node 1 and node 2. So you don't need to go and manually update all the virtual machines manually. So just hit the update button and all the antivirus signatures are updated. And last but not least is the brand new lightweight agent introduced in the version 8. When malware is detected on your host, Hyper-V requires a reboot of the virtual machine to remove those files, which cause service downtime for sure. Now a lightweight agent here can be added to all the mission criticals via virtual machines, and thus enabling threat removal without a reboot and without giving users access to your files. Now you can see that virtual machines with the agent installed on them do not require a reboot to proceed, and vice versa. The virtual machines without a lightweight agent needs a reboot to this virus delete, and so you can continue your normal workflow. So be sure to avoid system downtime at any cost, and be sure to avoid interfering with VM operations as well. With that, I'm switching back to Alex so he could continue his talk about other options of Finance Manager. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you for this great demonstration of Finance Manager version 8 new functionality. This is a very important update and very new important release that I strongly encourage everyone using Finance Manager at this moment to upgrade. So with that, let me quickly cover Finance Manager roadmap for next few quarters. We are actually planning great enhancements within Finance Manager. So in quarter 4 2015, Q1 2016, we are planning to add multi-tenant support that's going to provide visibility and management separation for shared resources. It's also going to receive role-based access control, which is going to be available for every single existing user that has a valid subscription for free. So you know that Finance Manager is based on subscription model, so this release is also going to be available for you. This is something that will allow you to precisely specify levels and permissions for your users to access your virtual infrastructure. In 2016 Q1, Q2, we're actually going to improve our management interface by updating it to HTML5 client graphical user interface that is designed for mobile, tablet, and PC browsers. This way you'll be able to manage your Hyper-V infrastructure from any device. Virtual infrastructure map overview that will show you all the components and their statuses. And of course, we are very excited with new Windows Server 2016 release that is planned for next year, and we are planning to support the newest functionality that's going to be available in that release, such as containers, nano servers, and of course, a new network controller role. So for those of you who are currently using VMware and have to perform a migration and are ready to go with Finance Manager just because you feel that you'll get a very familiar management experience and still very powerful functionality, Finance software also offers a free Finance B2B Easy Converter that is available on our website and that you can leverage to quickly convert your VMware workloads to Hyper-V. It performs host-to-host conversions from VMware to Hyper-V, thus making your operation very fast and efficient. It also supports Generation 1 and Generation 2 virtual machines, so if you're running BIOS and UEFI virtual machines on VMware, BIOS ones are going to be converted to Gen 1 for Hyper-V, and UEFI ones are going to be converted to Gen 2. Migration steps are very simple. You don't have to go through any kind of extensive guide to perform that. The wizard is very straightforward. It's actually going to take you through all the steps necessary. You just select your VMware ESXi source server, select virtual machines, edit configuration in case necessary, select Hyper-V destination server, and to make sure the host has sufficient resources, specify the temp pass, and migrate. So very straightforward, and I should mention that when we were comparing speed of conversion, in most cases it was up to 30% faster than other solutions that perform conversion similarly. The process is a 7-step wizard. The way we actually do that from a technical side, we do convert VMware configuration settings to Hyper-V 1, copy configuration parameters like name, memory, virtual network, virtual disks. Of course, we also allow you to make changes on them, which is very convenient. Especially if you buy new updated hardware and if you want to boost up your virtual machines directly at the conversion stage. The next step, we convert virtual hard disk VMDK from VMware to Hyper-V's VHDX file. And once conversion is done, we combine it and start it up on a Hyper-V server. So the process is very straightforward. Once again, it's very easy to start using Hyper-V and migrate from VMware to Hyper-V, because right now you don't have to spend any time learning about your Hyper-V virtualization. You just use Finance Manager, which is very straightforward, very simple, very easy to understand. No need to use any time to learn it. It is almost nothing as a learning curve. Sometimes I should tell you that iPhone users get used to that in 30 minutes. This is pretty much the same as Finance Manager here. You can get used to that in 30 minutes completely. So today we covered Finance Manager and its major overview and new exciting functionality of Finance Manager version 8. So once again, if you're an existing Finance Manager customer, please make sure that you upgrade to this release. As Finance Manager is a subscription-based product, you have this right if your license is valid at this moment. So if you're using version 5, 6, 7, please upgrade to version 8. The process is going to be very straightforward. You just install a newer version on top of your existing one. If you want to try Finance Manager with Antivirus, this is a next separate download because it requires a little bit different architecture, but still it is as straightforward and it will give you some antivirus capabilities. If you're an existing VMware user, so if you're using your VMware infrastructure and just consider moving to Hyper-V, Finance B2B converters will allow you to quickly convert your VMware infrastructure to Hyper-V and start managing that with Finance Manager. As of ways to acquire Finance Manager, you can find all the information about the product on finance.com/manager. Finance Manager is licensed per 2 CPU with discount on multi-layer purchases. So second year you'll get 20% and 40% for the third year, which is very significant. As a Antivirus edition, you can run active protection, real-time antivirus protection for up to 20 virtual machines. If you're currently using Finance Manager, you can safely upgrade to Finance Manager with Antivirus by leaving the request through a software product, or contacting your account manager directly. So that is very easy to do. So with that, I would like to switch to our questions and answers section, and we already have multiple great questions in here. So we have a question about Five9 and Asia Pac. So does Five9 work with Asia Pac? This is a great question. As of our product line, Five9 Cloud Security is the product that can be easily integrated with Microsoft solution like Asia Pac. So it is a security as a service solution that allows to seamlessly integrate security as a service inside the Asia Pac for end customers to use. As a Finance Manager, this is designed and built for the private Hyper-V infrastructure, and you know that Asia Pac actually provides Hyper-V virtual machines management functionality right away, so there is no big point of managing that itself. But Five9 Cloud Security can be integrated with Asia Pac and surely allows you to provide great value to your customers while maintaining your entire infrastructure secured by Five9 Cloud Security. We have another question about load balance capability. So we have a user who can see that. So if you are using Finance Manager version 8, please make sure that you have the latest release installed. So it is going to be available just as one of the tabs. We call it dynamic optimization, so or optimizer. Probably this is the confusion point. So in the Finance Manager interface, you are going to find it as optimizer. This is where you'll be able to set it up. You'll be adding new dynamic optimization groups. Within these groups, you'll be selecting each group parameter for CPU performance, memory, and what is going to be exact time for virtual machines to start migrating. Okay, so as of pricing of the full version with antivirus, and if there is an annual renewal for the antivirus. This is a great question. Finance Manager is a subscription-based product. It's licensed per 2 CPU. And if you need to figure out pricing, just please get to our website just for the latest one. At this point of time, it is $299 per 2 CPU for Finance Manager and $399 for Finance Manager with Antivirus. So if you compare this pricing to existing VMware pricing or System Center Virtual Machine Manager pricing, this is just a fraction of that cost, including the antivirus. Okay, so next question is whether you recommend running Hyper-V Manager as a virtual machine in a cluster or on a standalone server. At this point of time, Finance Manager is a purely agentless solution. That means that we don't put any agents for Hyper-V management operations on your Hyper-V hosts. It's going to change with role-based access control, obviously. This is where we have to pass on user multi-tenancy and user configurations and roles to Hyper-V hosts. So this is where we're going to be implementing those. Right now, Finance Manager has to be up and running all the time to collect this information about your performance and optimization data. So I would recommend you to be running that inside a highly available virtual machine for your infrastructure. If you're confident about your Hyper-V host, you can also be running Final Manager on your Hyper-V host locally, even if it is a core installation. So Final Manager supports core versions of Windows Server and Microsoft Hyper-V Server. That can be a way to go as well, but still a highly available virtual machine is recommended because you're constantly going to be collecting data. Okay. So another question here is, can you create converged networks using Hyper-V Manager? I have a Windows Server 2012 cluster and have plans to create new cluster using 2012 R2. And I'm hoping the product will allow me to easily do this. So Final Manager supports all the virtual networks supported by Hyper-V out of the box. So that means you'll be able to quickly create internal, external, and private networks directly from Final Manager interface. With the Windows Server 2016, Microsoft is going to introduce a networking controller role. So that's going to change a little bit, and that's going to make a networking even easier. So this is the main goal of Microsoft on doing that. So Final Manager will allow you to manage all of these existing networks, and stay tuned. Once you upgrade to 2016, is going to support that for you as well. Great news for you. So Final Manager supports 2008 R2SP1, 2012, and 2012 R2 at this moment. So we are supporting the latest releases of Microsoft Hyper-V that you can manage with Final Manager. And once 2016 is out, we are also going to immediately support that and some of its great new functionality, including the networking role. Okay, so another question that we have here. So either integration with Starwind Virtual SAN. You might have noticed that there is a solution by Starwind that's called a Hyper-Converged Platform, HCP. That includes Final Manager as its management interface. Actually, it is a very complete solution and a hyper-converged solution that includes VMware for backup, Starwind Virtual SAN for shared storage and for virtual SAN capabilities, obviously, and Final Manager as a management layer for all of that. This is indeed absolutely great. Starwind Virtual SAN is going to provide you with highly available storage, shared storage, and you'll be able to create a failover cluster on top of that. Okay. Another question here is about the supported Windows version. So what if you can actually manage your hyper infrastructure from desktop Windows versions? You can. Final Manager supports Windows 7 64-bit and up. So this is the version you can use. Please keep in mind that Windows operating system has to be 64-bit. So if it is Windows 8, it has to be 64-bit as well. So we already support that, and of course you can be performing your Hyper-V management out of that. And of course Windows 10 is already supported. So if you're trying your virtualization on Windows 10, you can manage your virtual machines locally right away with Final Manager. Another question here, will be linked to this send and if we record this. So yeah, we are recording this webinar and we are going to be sending it out to all the participants and registrants. So even if you missed a part, we'll be happy to share that with you. Okay, with that, I just realized we just ran 5 minutes after our scheduled time. I just want to be respectful to your time here, and I just want to thank everyone for attending this session today. Hopefully we managed to answer all of your questions and you gained some very valuable information. So please stay tuned on our future webinars. Thank you for attending and have a great day today.